Hey guys, how you going? I hope you're all doing really well. Welcome back to another video. Now, a year and a half ago, I posted my first video on this channel, which was how I lost 30 kilos at home. And over the last year and a half, that video has gone a little bit crazy. So today I thought it would be a good opportunity for me to go back through that video and answer some of the questions that I've commonly been asked in the comments or had messages about, and really just run through some extra information that maybe I missed out in the video, and also add a little bit extra to the end to talk about what's happened since the video. So we're going to watch through the video a little bit together, and I'll stop at any points where I feel like a little bit of extra information is needed, or I can answer a question that I'm asked all the time, and hopefully that will clear up some things and give you a better understanding of my whole journey. So I'm just going to bring the video up now, but I'm just going to start this video by saying when I filmed this, I had no intention of this becoming my career. This was 100% just my passion and my hobby. But the reason I created this video was because I had my Instagram account, and back then I had usually just been using it to show my calisthenics and to connect with other people. But I had put up a transformation photo, and from that photo I got a lot of messages and questions, and I thought the easiest way for me to be able to answer that was to put it all in the video, which is exactly why I created this video. I put it up on YouTube so I could direct people there, and that's where this was born. Obviously a lot has changed since then in my life, but I feel like I'm in a better position now to elaborate on some of the stuff that I didn't really think about when I was filming this initially. Hey, how you going? My name's Lucy, and in this video today I'm going to be discussing my fitness and weight loss journey. And I feel, looking back now, that I was kind of oblivious to how much weight I was putting on. I look back and I see pictures of myself, and I was bigger than I remember myself being at the time. But that being said, I knew I was overweight and I knew I was also unhealthy, but I just really didn't know what else I could do. Okay, so a question that I get a lot about this video is how long it took me, what age I was, that sort of thing. So I'm going to sort of talk about it as we go through the video, because really my journey is split up into a few different sections. So when I moved to Australia, I was 18, and really when I started to lose weight, I was around 24 or 25 years old. Up until that point, I was just doing my normal thing. I was working full time. I didn't train. I didn't really do any forms of exercise. I didn't really pay much attention to what I was eating, but I was definitely putting on a lot of weight, even though I had already been quite big throughout my teenage years. So I gradually continued to gain more and more weight until one day I was watching TV show The Biggest Loser, and it was the last episode where all the contestants, they come back and they've been gone for 3 months and they've completely transformed themselves, and I looked at them and I thought, wow, they look amazing. So this moment for me was the light bulb moment. I still remember exactly what I was doing, where I was, and I remember getting out my laptop and researching how to lose weight and trying to work it out, going on loads of different forums and just coming up with some concepts about what I should be doing. Because up until that point, I remember just being frustrated, being like, I just wish somebody could tell me what to eat, exactly what to eat, tell me exactly what exercise to do. And obviously over the years I've worked out that it's much simpler than that, and that really there is no right or wrong, which obviously I do a lot of videos about on my channel and I talk about all the time. But at the time I just didn't know. So I remember grabbing my laptop, looking at all these things, and the next day, that was it, everything changed. And people often ask me how I stayed motivated throughout the whole day. How I stay motivated throughout the whole journey. But honestly, I was so determined in that being my new life. I never had a goal in mind. I never had a certain weight that I wanted to be. I never had the idea that this was going to become my job. It was just, this was my new way of life. As I call it, the new teeth brushing. It's just something that we do every single day. I exercised in some way, and I ate less food. So I just didn't know what to do. But when I really started to look at the science of it, it was all coming down to one thing, and it's actually very, very simple. All it is how many calories you're eating versus how many calories your body is burning. So calories in versus calories out. Okay, so this is still true. To lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. So there's a certain amount of calories your body burns every single day, which is called your total daily energy expenditure, or your TDEE, and that's made up of 4 different components. Now that being said, I want to take you back to the mindset that I was in at the time. I honestly had absolutely no education. I had no clue what I was doing wrong, and I can see back now very clearly what I was doing, but at the time I was completely oblivious. I just didn't know what to do. So I started very simply. So a super common question that I got asked about this video is about my diet and how, for example, I ate in a calorie deficit, how I knew how many calories to eat, if I cut out specific food groups, or if I ate to a particular meal plan, or just generally how I knew what to do. And I've touched on this in a few different videos, but what I did was I just started to change little things throughout the week or throughout my days, which weren't super noticeable, but led overall to a big impact. So things, for example, like reducing how much I was snacking, snacking on whole foods instead of going out and buying like a muesli bar or a orange juice like I mentioned in the video. A huge thing for me was reducing portion sizes. I know this sounds crazy, but at the time I would eat 2 big bowls of pasta, maybe even 1 entire loaf of garlic bread and half a bottle of fizzy drink, and then have dessert as a regular dinner. And that's because I had the appetite. I could have eaten that easily, and it just became my normal. Now that to me now seems crazy that I would have eaten that much. Don't get me wrong, I could still eat that much, but I don't need to. But I know now that my portions were just completely out of control. And at the time, I just was completely oblivious to it. So by cutting down those portions significantly, that went a huge way into creating that deficit from what I was used to. So in terms of food and diet, I never cut anything out in particular. However, if I went, for example, for a coffee with my friends, I would have a black coffee or a herbal tea, and instead of having a cake or a muffin to go with it, I would just have nothing. But if I went to the supermarket and my partner bought a chocolate bar, I might have a block of chocolate from it, or if I was feeling super hungry, I might have some chocolate at the end of the day. I just made sure I was reducing what I was having overall and tried to snack less in general. So it's just important for me to tell you that I never restricted anything and I never cut out any specific food groups. You know, I still ate plenty of carbs. I'd have pasta for dinner, I would have toast or porridge for breakfast, I'd have a wrap or some soup with some bread for lunch. There was never any restriction in that regard. I just worked on reducing portion sizes and trying to listen to my hunger cues and my body a little bit better. So in terms of how many calories I was eating per day, I actually wouldn't be able to give you a specific number. I just ate in a range somewhere between 13 or 1400 and 1800 and tried to listen to my body. I used a calculator online to calculate how many calories my body was burning per day, what I now know is your TDEE, and I just sort of aimed to eat around less than that. I did pay a little bit of attention to calories in food. So for example, on the packets, I would look at calories, and that gave me a good idea of how much I should be eating portion wise. So for example, at lunch, if I'd had a wrap, I knew that I could have a wrap with some ham and some salad and a drink or something like that, and I knew it would come to a certain amount of calories. So in my head I was roughly calculating calories, but I was never tracking them, and I never had a specific goal in mind, like the exact number, which I stuck to. And then came the exercise. I grabbed some fitness DVDs, which were a mixture of bodyweight training with high intensity interval training and Tabata style workouts. And I just did those every single day. Okay, so what kind of exercise I did when I was losing weight? I think people get a little bit confused in this video because I say I lost 30 kilos at home, but in my video towards the end, you'll see me doing exercise in some calisthenics parks outside. So that definitely came a lot later, but initially when I lost the 30 kilos at home, I did it in the space of my living room in my apartment. So I will put up the DVDs if I can find a screenshot up here. It was Michelle Bridges. She's a celebrity personal trainer in Australia, and she did a project series which was HIIT basically, HIIT Tabata. They're about an hour long and they're pretty full on. So I grabbed them from JB Hi-Fi because they looked pretty good when I was looking at the exercise DVDs. And yes, it was back in the day when DVDs were still quite popular. And I started doing them. So they were about 60 minutes. I would come home from work, I would put a DVD on, and I would do that around 5 or 6 times a week. Usually 5 times a week, and then I would take the 6th day to do something else, just like a walk or maybe go for a cycle or something like that. But I did this consistently for months. I mean, probably 4 or 5 months where I lost quite a bit of the weight, maybe 25 kilos. So I was eating in that calorie deficit and I was doing these DVDs, and these DVDs are hard, like they were really tiring. I've got a workout video on my YouTube channel and I did it in a similar style so you guys could sort of see what it was like. These are really full-on videos, and as a beginner, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get through the first workout. Honestly, even the warm-up was a struggle. I remember yelling at my boyfriend, being like, I'm never gonna be able to do this. I couldn't move my body, just nothing felt right. It didn't feel functional. But what I did is I just kept trying, and suddenly I started to see that my body was reacting and it was responding in an amazing way where it was just starting to adapt to what I was doing. I did these DVDs so often that I can still remember the cues that she gives and also the exercises, like one after another after another. I could tell you what comes next. It's almost ingrained into me exactly what was coming up. So I did these religiously and super consistently. And eventually the weight started falling off. After about 6 to 7 weeks, I started to see bigger and bigger increases in how much weight I was losing. Okay, so I mentioned here after 6 weeks, this is another question I get a lot, is how quickly did you see results? How long did it take you to lose the weight overall? And questions along that line. So when I said here 6 weeks is probably when I started to notice progress. And so I think this is a really important point, that you're never guaranteed to see progress straight away. So I work with lots of clients now, I've worked with lots of people in the past where they expect to see progress every single week and they expect to see it from week 1. But it doesn't always work that way. For some people it will, and for some people, like for example me, it didn't. But because this was just my way of life now, there was no specific goal in mind, I wasn't recording my journey for anyone else, I was just doing it for me. I just remember it didn't even factor into my mind that I wasn't seeing progress at the beginning. And when I got to 6 weeks and I did my first set of photos, which I'll touch on later, that's when I noticed after that point that I started to lose weight quite quickly. So obviously it took my body a little bit of an adjustment period, but once I hit that 6-week mark and I started to see progress, it was super quick after that. And I remember at one point, I think I might have mentioned it in this video, I was buying a smaller size of my clothes every single week because I was dropping weight that quickly. And of course there was times when my weight went up or weight went down or my progress slowed or plateaued, but overall when I look at the progress, it was always working in the long term. I remember when I started doing those workouts, I couldn't even get halfway through one of them. I couldn't do one push-up, I was covered in sweat and absolutely exhausted by the end of the warm-up. And then after 3 months, I was breezing through them and had to go and find DVDs which were harder to keep challenging myself. So another question I get a lot is, why don't I show any footage of me doing exercise when I was unfit? Why don't I have any footage of me before I lost the weight? I have pictures obviously, but why don't I have videos? And the reason is because I just didn't take any. Well, first of all, this journey was for me and my health alone. At the time, I had no idea I would be putting it on the internet. I had no idea that this would ever become my job and my career, which obviously I absolutely love now, but this was never in my intention. And so I just was doing it as something that was a part of my day now. Secondly, I didn't really want to be on camera. I didn't really want to see pictures of myself. If you're in a position where you've been overweight or you have been at the beginning of a fitness journey, it's quite a daunting place to be, and it can be super motivating to take progress photos and to be able to track your progress. But at the time, I was really scared. I had a lot of self-confidence issues. I was crying in front of the mirror every single day. Again, this is something that I've talked about in other videos, and losing weight is not the be-all and end-all. It's not going to solve all the problems, but that's where I was at the time. So I didn't really want to be filming myself, so it never even crossed my mind that I would film my workouts or that I would take photos, which is exactly why I didn't even take my first progress photo or my first photo of myself until week 6. Okay, so I got to the point where I got to a healthy weight. I was pretty happy with where I was. Like I say, it wasn't going to be my job. It was just something that I enjoyed. So health and fitness was just a part of my life now. I ran quite often because I really enjoyed it. I mean, I say ran, I jogged quite often because I really enjoyed it. It made me feel good. And then I did these DVDs because it was really just what I knew and what I was used to. But there was a point where it became a little bit mundane and I slowly started to slack off a little bit. I moved back to the UK for 9 months and it was over winter, so it was very dark and very cold, not what I was used to. And so I sort of took it upon myself to use that as a little bit of an excuse to be a little bit lazier and just lay off the exercise a little bit. So after the 9-month stint in England, that's when I went back to Australia to go to university, like I mentioned, and I got my new job working on night shifts. So I was working from about 8 p.m. till 4 in the morning, or 10 p.m. till 6 a.m., something like that. And not only that, but the place I worked had unlimited free food 24 hours a day, which is always quite enticing. So combining a lot of studying with night shift, with a lack of sleep, and also having already slacked off a little bit with my training, I did start to put on weight, and I probably put on about 10 kilos from where I was. Now, another question I get a lot is how much did I weigh, and then how much did I weigh when I lost the weight? So my highest weight was 90 kilos that I had remembered. So I may have weighed more than that, but from the first point where I measured my weight to start tracking my progress, I was 90 kilos. And so I think the lowest I ever got down to was around 57. I have no idea what I weigh now. As you guys know, I don't believe in weighing myself. It plays into my head and it really gets into my mindset, so I just don't do it. That way I can have a healthy relationship with food, I can have a healthy relationship with my training, and really just enjoy the lifestyle that I've created rather than worrying about an insignificant number. And that's why I don't particularly like talking about my previous weight or the weight that I got down to, because I don't want you to compare yourself to me. Our bodies are all different, and what I look like at 60 kilos may have absolutely no correlation to how you would look or feel at 60 kilos either. So if you looked at me and said, I want to get to 60 kilos because that's what you look like at whatever I looked like, if that makes sense, then that's not a good way of going around it. I think you need to be looking at different factors, such as I want to exercise because it's going to make me feel good, it's going to be good for my health, it's going to make sure that I don't have lifestyle diseases, or it's just going to be a fantastic part of my day, rather than saying I want to look a certain way or I want to be a certain weight. So it just so happened that this period coincided with New Year's, and I decided that this year I was going to make a New Year's resolution, and that was to be able to do 1 chin-up by the end of the year. At the time, I couldn't even hold my body weight on a bar, so I felt like being able to do just 1 chin-up by the end of the year was a pretty achievable target. Okay, so I'm now about 27 in this footage where I'm trying to do a chin-up, and I remember setting this New Year's resolution. I want to be able to do a chin-up because I just thought it would be a good thing to be able to master, and it was hard. It was really hard. It took me probably around 8 or 9 months to be able to do a full chin-up, and I think I mentioned this in this video, but it was a hard slog. However, probably the best decision of my life. This is probably the second phase of my journey. So if I was going to break it into two, there would be the at-home losing weight phase, which is HIIT training and eating in a calorie deficit through reducing portions and snacks. And then there's this phase, which is the strength gain and finding my passion and really finding where I belonged in fitness and lifestyle. I had already seen the benefits of body weight training in regards to weight loss, but I hadn't really had much experience with bodyweight training for strength gain. And as I started to research more into it about how I could progress to do a chin-up, I started to get hooked on calisthenics and all the benefits that come along with it. So calisthenics, I genuinely had absolutely no clue how to say the word. I had no clue what calisthenics was. Obviously I know now, but at the time I was just falling into this little rabbit hole of bodyweight training and just exploring what I could do. People often ask me who I followed to begin with or what resources I used, and honestly I just scrolled through Instagram. And you know how when you're on Instagram and you follow or you like something, it will show you something similar? I was just doing that, and I was just scrolling through. I would save anything that looked kind of cool and I would try it, and I would probably fail at it. And I would just keep trying, and eventually it got a little bit easier. I often get asked if I waited to get to a certain weight to start calisthenics, but nothing could be further from the truth. I just genuinely had no idea about other styles or forms of training. I'd never even thought about the fact that I would ever do calisthenics or be able to do a chin-up or anything like that. And it just didn't even cross my mind. I was just doing what I was doing to lose weight and get a little bit fitter and healthier. And then I sort of stumbled into this and found a super massive passion for it and just absolutely loved what I was doing, which is what drove me onwards. So I never waited for the right time, and there really is no right time. You can start whenever. Obviously with calisthenics, if you weigh less, it's going to be easier for you because the resistance is coming from your body weight. But that does not mean that if you're overweight, you cannot start calisthenics, because I would urge you to. I think it's a fantastic form of training, and we'll go into it a bit later. But I think you guys agree too. At the time, I was definitely not strong enough. So I started working on the fundamentals of calisthenics. Alongside my chin-up training, I was training my push-ups, my dips, my core work as well, and trying to really gain that base strength that you need to be able to progress further in calisthenics. So throughout my reading and having a look around Instagram, I obviously identified some of the more fundamental exercises, so things like dips, chin-ups, and then push-ups as well. And I just started working on them, as well as just trying some fun things like handstands, pistol squats, and yeah, just fun stuff. But don't get me wrong, don't think that it just happened like that and I naturally took to it. I'm not strong when I was in this position, I was not flexible in any way, and I was definitely not coordinated. So the HIIT definitely helped, but I was in no way cut out for this training. So I just slowly started working on it, and again, I'm sad because I don't have a lot of footage of it, and I really, really wish I could show you guys the level that I've come from, just because I know a lot of you will relate to it and it would help you understand that it is possible to train yourself to do these things and there's no right or wrong way to do it. But unfortunately I don't. I'm gonna have a good route through my old laptop again, see if I can find anything at all, but there's just not a lot because again, I was just doing it because I loved it. I noticed that my strength started to grow, and every week I could do a little bit more in the exercises, whether it was my push-ups were just a little bit better, whether I was closer to being able to do a chin-up, whether I could just handstand a little bit longer. I was starting to see differences. And not only did I see differences in my strength, and not only did I see differences in my body, but I also saw differences in my mindset. So I get a lot of people saying that I trained at home, but there's pictures of me in parks, or that they don't have these kind of parks near them, so they can't do this type of exercise. But a lot of these parks were absolutely nowhere near my house, and the footage that I've got in this, it spans over about 8 or 9 months, maybe even a year. So that's a year of me filming the little clips when I was at the park. But everything else I pretty much did at home. I had a spare room in my house. I converted it into a gym. Basically, I put a door-mounted pull-up bar, one of those ones that you just hook over the door frame. It was like 20 bucks from Kmart. I had a few little hand weights, I had a yoga mat, and that was pretty much it. A couple of resistance bands, and I just got to work. I'd go in that room, put my music on, I would try doing handstands for hours because I enjoyed it, and then come out a sweaty mess. Every single time I walked past my pull-up bar at home, I would try and hold myself on the bar. If I could try and do a chin-up, I would. If I could just jump and pull myself, I would. Every single time without fail. And to be honest with you, some of these clips in the park, I was really scared going to those parks at first because I was on my own. I felt like I was such a beginner in this world and that I wouldn't be really, people would laugh or not be accepted, like how people feel in gym intimidation going into a gym for the first time. But slowly I built my confidence up, and I think I mentioned that I met a few people, which helped as well. I noticed that my strength started to grow, and every week I could do a little bit more in the exercises, whether it was my push-ups were just a little bit better, whether I was closer to being able to do a chin-up, whether I could just handstand a little bit longer. I was starting to see differences. And not only did I see differences in my strength, and not only did I see differences in my body, but I also saw differences in my mindset. This for me is the key point, and I don't know why. Every time I watch it, or when I filmed it as well, I was crying. I had to keep turning the camera off because it just made me so happy. But it did just become something that I just loved, and no longer was I worried about what I was eating. I wasn't worried about my training. All I wanted to do was be out there doing that. I'd get home from a night shift. I would go to bed for 3 or 4 hours. I'd wake up and go into my little gym room and do exercise, come up with choreography, try new things. And I just absolutely loved it. And I was doing all this on my own with absolutely no experience. And it was just so much fun. Because I was seeing so many benefits from my training, my passion was just growing and growing. And quite frankly, I was driving my friends and family nuts with how much I was ranting and raving about calisthenics. So I created my Instagram account and connected with a few people who are doing the same thing as me in my local area. We started hanging out and I started working on new skills, and from there my strength and passion grew even further. Okay, so something I always talk about in calisthenics is how amazing the calisthenics community is, and this point proves it exactly. So I started my Instagram account and I was really just using it to put up some of my photos and share my passion and my training. And then one day a guy called Kirsten reached out to me on Instagram and said he wanted to interview me for his YouTube channel, and I was like, oh no, I'm not good enough at I'm not good enough at calisthenics at all for that, like no way. But I was like, I'm gonna put myself out of my comfort zone. I was like, if you ever want to train, we can go and train together. And so that's the first time I ever went to this park, is when I met Kirsten for the first time. And that point really changed a lot for me, because it made me realise just how inclusive and caring the calisthenics community is. They really want to see people excel, and they all are passionate about the same thing, and that is something that's so hard to find. Hanging out at the park with Kirsten, I met other people, I started to grow confidence in talking to strangers when I was at the park, and really that became my little hub and my little home, and I made so many friends through calisthenics. I saw improvements in my handstands, my push-ups were better, I could do bodyweight dips and pistol squats, which I could never do before. But the biggest change I saw was in my happiness. I was so happy when I was doing these exercises, and I was training because I loved it, not because I had to or for the way it made my body look. Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna think I'm so lame for crying over calisthenics, but it makes me super emotional because it was just such a good time of my life. I was just so happy. Okay, I've got to stop crying. So the impact it had on my appearance was the least important thing at the time. It really meant nothing to me in comparison to just how much I was enjoying my day-to-day life. But obviously, it was a nice little pusher to see progress in your physique or your appearance, and your goals as well. And that's when all the pieces of the jigsaw just started to click together. I now understood that the nutrition and exercise were working together perfectly to give my body exactly what I needed. So this really was a time when my eating and my training were just working so naturally together, and it just felt like such an organic process, and I didn't need to put any extra effort into it, which is why I think it has such an impact on me. I have experienced the benefits of bodyweight training in all regards, and I truly believe that it is one of the best exercises for weight loss and general fitness, and to grow strong as well. And it's not just for men, women can do it too. People who are overweight can do it. People who have never been able to do a push-up or a dip or a chin-up in their lives can do it. Okay, so I guess this is where I want to lead on from this video, and really I just want to mention that I'm so grateful that this community is just as passionate and excited about calisthenics as I am. And not only that, but in a sport or a style of training that tends to be more male dominated, it just absolutely fills my heart to see so many women wanting to get involved and feeling like I am someone they can relate to, in terms of seeing that women can do it. So since this has become my career, and I've worked as a coach and a personal trainer with a lot of people, it has really hammered home to me just how passionate a lot of people are, and how excited people are to find a different form of training which challenges them in a different way and really sort of breaks the norm. And it's still a growing sport, and it's a growing style of training, and it's just fantastic to see people getting involved. It is an amazing feeling when you achieve a skill for the first time, whether that be a push-up or whether that be a planche or human flag. But one thing that is better than that feeling is witnessing a client or somebody else achieve it. The happiness on their face is just the amazing things to see, and it really brings home to me the point of all these little additional benefits to bodyweight training and to just having a healthy relationship with your exercise and your nutrition. When I initially lost the weight, I was still quite restrictive with my diet, and I was constantly assessing whether I'd done enough exercise to allow me to eat that day. It's not a very healthy mindset that I had, whereas now I have a much better outlook. I train because I love it, and I eat because it provides the fuel that my body needs to be able to exercise. And I think that's the shift that I really want to be able to help other people with. So just in case you're not aware, just after this video was filmed, I did move back to the UK. So I was in Australia for 11 years in total, and I am a dual citizen, so I may go back one day. But at the moment I'm in the UK. I used the opportunity to move to become a personal trainer, and I started working in a gym, but I still worked with a lot of people that were interested in calisthenics. As I started to film some more YouTube videos, it did take me a while, because quite honestly, as you guys know, I suffer a lot with imposter syndrome and just in general confidence in terms of putting social media stuff out there and YouTube videos, for example. But I'm working on it a lot, and I have realised more and more the passion that you guys have for it, and how that aligns with my passions as well, and how I am no one special. I am just a normal girl who didn't have a clue what they were doing, and has slowly over years and years and years carved out a different path and different methods and worked out what's best for me and have finally found what I'm super passionate about. I still love calisthenics and it's still my main form of training, and if I find somebody who is also into calisthenics who I can train with, I literally could chew their ear off about it, and I just have the best time going down the park or going to the gym with somebody and being able to just play around on rings or bars, just that monkey life that I always talk about. And I still embrace all the challenges that come along with it. You know, it's a hard form of training in terms of progress can be a lot slower than other forms of training, but as I said, it's so worthwhile, and I would suggest that anybody who's interested in trying it just gets involved in it. Even if you're a beginner and you don't think it's possible, there's definitely things that you can start doing, and even if you are advanced, there's always somewhere else you can go. And so we reached the end of that video. Gosh, that was emotional, but I hope that's really helped you understand some of the extra information that I had maybe missed out not knowing at the time, and that it makes a little bit more sense now. It gives you a bit more of a fuller picture. But if you have any questions at all, drop them down below. You can head over to my Instagram, message me over there. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Sorry for crying like a baby. Can't help myself. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. Take care. Bye.
We're out of time. I guess no one's to blame. Nobody crossed the line.